Geoffrion, Vice President of Packaging Operations for DHL Supply Chain and one of the winners of this year's Women in Supply Chain Award, presented by Supply and Demand Chain Executive. Alicemarie, first off, congratulations on this win. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your company, and kind of what you've done to get to this point in your life?
Sure. So I joined DHL Supply Chain about 9 years ago. And when I joined, I was part of the strategy and M&A group. But after a couple of years, I moved into a global role, which I was the head of global solutions for our Williamsley Tag business unit, which we previously owned. But from there, I moved into my current role, which is head of North America's packaging group. So I've kind of moved around a bit, but I've obviously had many different opportunities in the organization. And prior to actually coming to DHL, I was also in the merchandising, fulfillment, supply chain industry, and was a management consultant as well.
So what kind of attributes do you think successful supply chain leaders should have to get, to be able to move up the ranks?
So I think there are several key attributes for this. First, I think that a supply chain leader really needs to be passionate about supply chain, but more so passionate about finding innovative ways to develop new solutions and to take things to the next level and so forth. So I think that's really important. I also believe that a supply chain leader should be someone that is able to recognize their own weaknesses. So being able to look at yourself, look at your skill gaps, and not only recognize them, but then take actions to improve them, whether that's doing research, taking courses, trade shows, seminars, etc. I think it's really important that you're always looking at ways to improve your knowledge and improve your skill set. And then finally, I would say that I believe a successful supply chain leader is someone who's able to really listen to customers, to your associates, to your peers, to ensure that all points of views are considered and that you understand them, so that ultimately you can make the best decision moving forward and take the best strategic action you can take for leading your teams.
So obviously the supply chain industry has encountered, a plethora of challenges over the last 18 months. I think you can agree with that. Yep. What kind of challenges specifically to you and your team have you faced, and how did you work to overcome them?
So I think there's a couple of things from a challenge perspective. I do think that, we've all experienced the labor challenge, especially over the last couple of years. And I think really being able to look at the labor market and understand the labor market has been really important for us. And leveraging different ways of attracting talent has also been extremely important for our organization. So looking at college recruits, looking at experienced hires, looking at associates that will be working inside of our facilities and so forth in all different ways, and really trying to attract them to the organization has been really important. I think DHL has done an amazing job with a lot of our different programs that we have. I think we've done a really good job of making sure that everyone understands what a great place it is to work at DHL and in our environment. So I do think the biggest challenge is around labor, and I do think that will continue, but I definitely think that we have taken a lot of actions to overcome that as well.
So the supply chain industry has also been a traditionally male-dominated industry. We do see that changing thanks to women like you. So what is it like from where you sit and how you've had to come through in your career being a woman in a traditionally male-dominated industry?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always been about focusing on driving results and collaborating with different team members, regardless of whether they were, male or female, and whether they were dominant, one gender was more dominant than the other. So I do think that, if we all continue to focus on what we're here for, which is to make things better, to drive innovations, to deliver results, I think that, that is a way to kind of overcome that. And I would say within supply chain, I'm finding that there is definitely more exposure to supply chain, and the industry is starting to become more exciting, right? And so I think one of the things that was really encouraging is DHL just went through our internship program, and as we were, talking to the interns and we were going through that program, I was really excited to see that it was a pretty even mix of men and women that are part of that program. So that means that there is a lot of interest in supply chain, at the college level. And I was really excited to see that, the universities really are making sure that, there's a lot of opportunities and people understand the opportunities from a supply chain perspective. So that's something that I think has been awesome, at least for our organization. So I think that in order to continue to attract that talent, the more exposure women have to supply chain and the more exciting, that they can see that the opportunities are, I think the more women will be attracted to that for sure.
So you bring up some good points. A lot of companies struggle with the labor shortages it is, let alone recruiting and even retaining talented women, women, whether they've been in the industry for quite some time or whether they're newly entered. So what should companies be doing better or more of to recruit and retain these women?
Yeah, so I believe, first of all, that there's just so many different opportunities to start educating people around the industry. So whether that's having, trade shows, TED Talks, whatever that might be, I do think that there's a way that the industry could be marketing itself more so that people understand sort of all of the opportunities out here. So one of the things that I've gone through in my career is that I've always been in supply chain in some form or another. But when I was in supply chain, I've had roles that were focused on IT, that were focused on sourcing and procurement, operations, of course, now packaging. There's many, many different areas that you can certainly focus on. And I believe that the more education the industry itself does, I think the more excited people will be about joining that industry, because there's many different ways you can play in this industry, right? And there's a lot of different functions and areas that you can get involved in as well. So I have found that, for me, it was exciting that while in supply chain, I was still able to explore different functional areas and explore different operational areas throughout my career. So again, I think it's about going out there, recruiting the talent, and making sure that people understand how important it is to access a whole diverse group of talent as well. Because to me, the more diverse that talent is that you bring into an organization, the more creative your solutions are going to be, the more innovative your solutions are going to be. And I think that different perspectives certainly lead to more innovations on an ongoing basis. So I do think that that's really important. And this industry is so unique, right? And so complex and challenging. And if we make sure that people understand that and understand like how many different areas you can get involved in and all the different challenges that are out there, I do think that we're going to continue to attract more talent. But obviously we need more exposure at the university level, and we certainly need more exposure just in general for the industry.
So with the exposure part for those that are looking to get into supply chain, and you mentioned, the different sections and layers of the supply chain, kind of what advice do you have for those who, maybe are kind of on the fence if this is right for them? And, maybe what advice would you give your younger self?
Sure. I would say, first of all, this is a fun industry. So, my best advice is to make sure that you're having, fun, right? But the other thing is I would definitely, really advise people to explore the different areas in supply chain. Like I just mentioned, there's so many different ways you can get involved in the supply chain industry and be a contributor to the industry. So because of that, I do believe that there's a lot of different opportunities for a lot of different individuals out there and a lot of different women that really may think, well, supply chain doesn't seem exciting. Well, it definitely is, and you can get involved in many of those different areas. And I also think that really it's about looking to make sure that people understand that this industry is also evolving. So, it's becoming more automated, more technology, more digital related. So just, I think from an overall perspective, I think the education of making sure that people understand that. And I would just, really give that advice that make sure you really understand really what this industry is about and all the opportunities you can have, because I think when I just take a step back and I look at everything that's going on in the industry, I just find it extremely exciting because it does combine pretty much everything that you could want between the digital side of things, the human, the labor side of things and so forth. So, I would definitely say that.
So how does it feel to be named one of Supply and Demand Chain Executive's top women in supply chain?
Well, first of all, I'm extremely grateful that this award actually exists. So I think it's, really amazing that women in supply chain are being honored. And I think that first and foremost, that's so important. And then also, I'm very grateful that my organization has nominated me for this award as well. I know there are many other, great and awesome, talented women out there that could certainly have been nominated. So I really appreciate that. And I also feel very honored that I'm a part of this group because I did get a chance to look at all the other award winners out there. And it's just really exciting to see how many people in this industry are making a difference that are women. So I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, and to your team and to your company for continuing to make that difference, especially when, it matters the most. So thank you for all of your efforts. Alicemarie Geoffrion, Vice President of Packaging Operations for DHL Supply Chain and one of the recipients of Supply and Demand Chain Executives Women in Supply Chain Award. So to learn more about Alicemarie, go to stcexec.com. Thank you.
Thank you.